So, Andrea and I were out of town last week, which is why there was not any Marriage Monday or Family Friday last week. We take a trip for my day job, our day job now. Congrats on being hired for the company that I run along with my parents. And while we were away on that trip in Miami, Andrea said something that really stuck with me that I want to talk a little bit about today. Do you remember what you said?
I do.
What did you say?
I said, being away together makes me realize that I'm more in love with you than I think I am.
All right, that's what we're going to talk about today.
Great, let's get into that.
Before we jump into today's episode, we just wanted to share a few things with you. First, we'd like you to like this episode and then subscribe to our podcast. If you're doing that on YouTube, also hit the bell notification so that you know when we post anything new. And then share this with somebody that you feel like this would be beneficial for.
That's right. If you would like to support our show further, we would welcome that. You are welcome to do that at anchor.fm/marriagebydesign to check out your options for supporting the program financially. Otherwise, guys, the links to our social media are always in the description of every video, so feel free to check those out there. And now, let's get to the show.
Hey everybody, I'm Nathan Warnock.
I'm Andrea Warnock, and you've joined us for Marriage Monday on the Marriage by Design podcast, and this is the time where we get to talk to you about God's design for marriage, what the Bible has to say about marriage, and how we live it out practically.
That's right. So I wanted to take this first episode of February and just speak a little bit, really practically, about marriage. We've spoken a lot about what the Bible says about marriage, and that's really important. We will continue to do that. But we also like to talk a little bit about just some practical things that we've learned, hopefully to encourage you in your own marriage. And what Andrea said in the cold open, which I want you to repeat that so that we can kind of build off that. Will you just repeat what you said?
On our trip that we took, I told Nathan on one day that being away together makes me realize that I'm more in love with you than I think I am when we're in the everyday grind of life.
Right. And so really there's two things we want to talk about in this episode. The first one's what you just said, the grind of life. And what is that? And apologize if we sound scratchy. 'Tis the season for colds and things. But first thing we want to talk about is a little bit about the grind of life. What that is that okay? Just having an understanding of that, because I think it's critical to understand why sometimes we can get off base in our marriage and why sometimes we can feel hopeless in marriage. And then the second thing we want to just talk about briefly is the importance of the escape as a couple, the importance of getting away, and you don't have to go a long ways away, but just getting away, dedicated time, the two of you and your spouse, and the importance of that in battling against the grind. So maybe you want to start. What is the grind?
Oh my gosh. It's just that, I will say, since we had our fifth child, it's been like the grind times a bajillion.
Felt a little grindy now.
Gosh. Anyway, so, the grind is just your everyday, what you're doing to get by in life, the work that you have to do, the housework, the laundry, the kid stuff that you're running here and there and everywhere for, the eating, making meals and eating together, and just the everyday normal stuff that is not really the exciting things, but the things that just kind of happen or need to get done.
Right. So from a biblical standpoint, we talk about the grind of life really as shorthand for the consequences of sin. Mm-hmm. So in Genesis 3, Adam and Eve had sinned, God calls them on it, and now there's going to be consequences for their sin. And what God says to the woman, he said, I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over you. We've talked about that on Marriage Monday, what that desire to rule over you, or desire shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over you, what that means in marriage. And in verse 17 of chapter 3, God says to Adam, because you've listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, you shall not eat it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat, till you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. So we talk about the grind of life as shorthand for, I've never met anyone that goes, you know what? The day-to-day living, it's just so easy. Like, I just feel like I just go to work, and I love going to work, and I commute to the office, and it's just great time to just be in my car, just enjoy it. Nobody talks like that.
Right. Now, to be clear, before before sin entered the world through Adam and Eve, they were still called to work. So work was not a consequence of sin, but it would be so drastically
Totally different. Totally different.
If there's no sin, work, and our entire lives would be very different. And I wonder if there would be more rest. But anyway.
Well, for one thing, one of the consequences of the fall was that the earth itself turned against us as humans. I mean, can you imagine what it would be like just without that? Like, hey, I plant a piece of corn, and the earth's like, I just can't wait to just produce this corn for you.
Without any weeds and without any death.
Right. We see Adam dealing with the animals pre-sin, and the animals are like coming to him to be named and categorized, and they're like introducing themselves to Adam. Right. There was this there was this order and symbiotic relationship between humans and this planet that the Lord created for us. And one of the results of sin is that the earth itself now rebels against the sin of humanity. And so part of our role is to bring that earth in line and steward it as best we can. And that's hard. And on top of that, a result of sin is pain and suffering and difficulty and the pain of childbearing. But alongside that, the pain of child rearing and raising. And so it's just, this is the thing that it means to be human, is that we grind in life. And again, I'm not talking, please don't misunderstand me, I'm not talking about from a spiritual standpoint. That's the great part about salvation through faith in Jesus Christ, is that's the least grindy part of our entire existence here on earth. Confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, and you'll be saved. There's no striving or grinding involved in that at all. Why? Because God knew if there was, we would boast about it, and he wanted us only boasting in the work of Christ. But that doesn't mean that even the work of life here on earth for the Christian is marked by difficulty and the grind. And because human beings are so emotionally minded, the grind of living in a sinful world can produce depression and strain on relationships and anger and all kinds of just dark thoughts that, of course, are fueled by our enemy, who desires that we are, he desires to steal, kill, and destroy from us, steal our joy, kill our joy, ultimately kill us and destroy our reputation, destroy our testimony here on earth. So that's the grind. And within marriage, that grind so often leads to hopelessness within marriage, because it just feels like, and it feels this way for you and I too, that all we do is go to bed, wake up early because somebody woke up, or one of us wake up early, or whatever, which puts strain on who's waking up and who's when, and all of that. Got to make breakfast, got to clean up from breakfast. By then the kids have made a mess in the playroom and other places in the house, so that's got to be dealt with. Then there's discipline throughout the day, and then discipline for the discipline because the first discipline didn't take. And then there's two kids arguing, and then there's lunch, and then there's maybe naps or maybe not, and then there's more cleaning up, and then I get home, and then we have dinner, and then we got to do more picking up, and then we spend a little bit of time playing with the kids, and then we put them to bed, which usually involves more discipline, and then they're finally in bed, and then they're back out of bed, and then you got to deal with that, and then you and I have a few minutes to talk, and then we're asleep. And that's a day in and day out, and day in and day out, and day in and day out. And of course, marked with, and we've talked about this, marked with opportunities, and you're great at this, to break up that grind by doing things with the kids to break them out of the daily routine, or us as a family, or whatever. And we've talked about that. We'll continue to talk about that in future Family Friday episodes. But the point is, it's real easy in that grind where the days are flying by, right? What is it? Somebody has often told us the years.
The days are long, but the years are short.
That's right. And so, but the problem is we're in the days, and so we're just trying to get through the day, get through the day, and get through the day, and then to add insult to injury, the years are flying by, and you look back and go, then the depression sets in of, well, why didn't I use that time better? Well, you didn't, because you were just grinding in the grind of life every day. So part of the hopelessness of that as a couple is that you can look at each other and go, man, I feel like all we do is tension stuff between us, disciplining the kids, making sure we're on the same page, dealing with the fact that so-and-so asked dad something, and dad said something, and then so-and-so went and asked mom, and mom said something different, and that puts her and I at odds and makes weird situation. And it's just, you just feel tension between husband and wife.
Or even not tension, but the way the busyness of life keeps you from really connecting with each other on a deep level.
Right.
And
it's good.
So then that causes you to just not have, a deeper level of intimacy.
Right. That's right. So
we've told this story before, but when we were in Disney World with our son years ago, 6, 7 years ago, we were at a restaurant sitting at one of those Japanese steakhouse restaurants where you sit at a table with other people and they cook in front of you, So we were sitting at a table and there was a couple in their probably late 50s sitting there, and we were kind of talking about why we're at Disney, and they had said, well, we're here because we graduated our last child from high school and they went away to college, and we looked at each other and we said, I don't even know who you are. I don't even know. I'm not sure we know each other anymore. And so they decided wisely, rather than saying, well, this relationship isn't worth it anymore.
Right.
They said, well, we need to figure out how we need to get to know each other again. And so one of the ways was they were taking a trip to Disney. But that was impactful for us. And I'm sure it was a God thing for us because it was marked in both of our minds, and it's been a driving force all these years to think, man, we can't just let our marriage go to the back burner because I don't want to get 20 years down the road and say, I don't know who you are. And what a sad thing, because the man that Nathan is in all these years, it changes some, but it's a great thing to know who he is. And I would be so sad to have missed out on who he is for all these years. Mm. So that was really a change for us in our thinking about our own marriage and marriage in general.
Right.
And certainly one of those things that we keep in the back of our heads of, like, man, we don't want to be that way.
Right. So what do we do then about this problem? One, there are a lot of tools, and we've talked about the grind in the past on this channel before, but this particular time I want to talk about the necessity, the benefit, the importance of getting away, just the two of you. And trust me, with 5 kids, most of them who are little kids, I know how difficult it is to do this.
Yeah, and you're putting stress on somebody else who's taking your kids, and it's stressful just to even get away, just to, I don't just have to pack myself up, but I've got to make lists and plans and path and let the people who are taking care of our kids know all sorts of stuff.
Right.
It is a lot.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So certainly getting away is the only way you get to know each other in your marriage, but it is kind of the capstone.
Right. And again, for purposes of this episode, kind of what I'm really getting at is what you said. Because so often the problem with the grind is we start to buy a lie. because you're not on the same page, or you're struggling, or you have stresses from work and home, and all these things are coming together, and Satan plants this idea in your mind of, well, the issue is you two aren't really that great together anymore. And it's easy to start buying into that lie. And again, it's why it really touched me at a deep level when you said that, because, I guess I hadn't thought of it that way, but a definite benefit of getting away, just the two of you, for more than a 12-hour period, right? Getting away for 2 or 3 or 4 days, 2 or 3 times a year, is that it gives you an opportunity in a setting that's not stressful, right? In a relaxed setting to go, man, we really do have a good relationship, a good foundation of a relationship, and that's benefit one. Benefit two is I really look forward to when our lives look more like this. And I don't mean lounging at the pool all every day.
Hey,
I mean just the right, but I mean just the two of us hanging out together.
We also never lounged at the pool.
No, we did not. No, we did not. But
it's many much business.
That's right. But we have fun together, and we enjoy doing those things together. And what you said is really right. Like, man, I am more in love with you than I think I am sometimes. And that's not because I don't think I love you when I'm at home. It's because there's the grind is running interference.
Yeah, there's so many things taking us away from each other.
Right.
That's just part of life. That when and praise the Lord for this, because I remember we went on a vacation with your family in 2006, the summer after we got married, and I'm not sure we had ever, other than our honeymoon was great, but then in that summer of 2006, we went with your whole family on vacation, and we just did not like being around each other for long periods of time, and we were in a hard spot. But so that hasn't always been the case where, like, oh, we get away and we're on the same page. Part of it too is even though we don't always feel like we're on the same page during the grind of life or whatever, we do work hard to try to connect with each other and to try to sort of push pause on the craziness of life and all that sort of thing while we're here and not getting away. So that getting away is so much good and so much feeling like we're on the same page. I was struck by how that same page thing, there's so many things that we talked about that, like, both of us are like, yes, we agree, we're both in agreement, or just enjoying the time that we had together was really, it was obvious how much we enjoyed just being together.
Right. And I want to read something from Song of Solomon too. So this is a book that was written about Solomon and a woman that he fell in love with. It's written poetically, but I believe tells an actual story that actually happened. And here's what it says in chapter 2, verses 10. This is Solomon speaking to the woman that he loves. She's sharing this story. My beloved, him, Solomon, speaks and says to me, arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away. For behold, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, and the time of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The fig tree ripens its figs, and the vines are in blossom, they give forth fragrance. Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away. And he continues on, but the point is, it's been winter. They've been stuck doing wintry things for the last, however long. And now spring has sprung, and his instinct is to get her and get away, to see the sights, to spend some time together, to have just some specific time, the two of them out in the beauty of the world around them. And so I just, that's kind of our encouragement is, and guys, these don't have to be crazy expensive trips, right? I'm not saying, hey, rack up a whole bunch of debt because your marriage is going to fail if you don't get away 2 or 3 times a year. But I am saying it's important to do that, and sometimes doing it in an inexpensive way just takes some dedicated time doing the research. and figuring it out. And also, not every getaway needs to be to Miami, right? I mean, if you look at the state you live in, just pull up a map and look at some town. You go, I don't even know what this town is, and see if there's something cool there. I mean, we've done that with a couple of small towns around where we live and found like an Airbnb that was a tree house, and an Airbnb that was like modeled after the Hobbit hole from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and the treehouse thing was not. It wasn't cheap. It wasn't very expensive either. But that was our entertainment, really.
Right.
It was in a beautiful, secluded area, and we just did a lot of walking and talking, and
Right.
we hung out and played some board games and
Right.
It
was great. So here's the other side of this. If you're someone that doesn't want to spend money ever on anything because you go, we're young, you got to be investing and doing all those things. We've probably told this story before, but we had a close friend who was married, and she's that way. And her husband said, you need to stop because who knows how long we actually have together, and we need to take advantage of this. Again, not saying let's not do any investing, but let's be intentional about enjoying the time we have together now. And he died, tragically. And I know she would look back on that and go, man, I'm really glad. He was right. Like, I'm really glad that we did spend some of that money to do some things together in the limited amount of time that it turns out we had together. Don't forget that. We're not guaranteed long lives together. And so don't have such a tight grip on your money thinking about the future that you lose out on today. And again, it doesn't have to be a ton of money, but doing these intentional times away several times a year is critical for just resetting. And if nothing else, going back to the grind of life, going, all right, we're on the same page. Now it's back into the heat of battle, and at least we know we're on the same page. And battle's a little bit of that hopelessness that can creep in.
Mm-hmm.
So, last thing we probably need to address, babe. You mentioned this earlier. Let's say you do a trip like this, and you realize you're really not on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
How ought we respond to that?
Sure. Well, I think probably just the first step would be being honest with each other, with yourself, and with each other that something's wrong here, and let's not ignore that. So let's get some help. Let's seek out. Let's see if it feels minor, then let's deal with that. If it feels like this is maybe beyond us, then seek out some people who are either a stage or two in front of you in maturity in their relationship with the Lord, but who are warriors for marriage.
Yeah.
Or, that's what I would say. They might be older, they might not, they might just be more mature in their relationship with the Lord, but who are definitely warriors for marriage.
Yep.
And marriage God's way. And say, hey, we need some help, would you mind helping us through this?
Right.
And get into the Word yourselves. Don't expect...
The Bible.
Yeah, get into the Bible yourselves. Don't expect this couple that you seek out with. First of all, don't expect them to come to you and say, "Hey, we're noticing maybe we should help you." You've got to go to them, and maybe you've got to be the ones to, own that and suggest dates and suggest, "Hey, I think we really need to talk about this," because unless this is something that they've done in the past, marriage mentoring, or then. Yeah, unless this is something that they do frequently, they might not even know what to do. So you can suggest, well, we're really struggling in this area. Can we talk about this?
Yeah.
But you and your spouse should be into the Word yourselves, and that gives you it talks about that the Word gives you a renewing of the mind, and it does. It renews energy. It renews our mind, and so we should be getting into the Bible and. Seeing not just what the Bible has to say about marriage, but what the Bible has to say, period. Right. And really allowing the Lord, I would say the third thing is really allowing the Lord to be the Lord of your life.
100%.
Not this kind of hobby Christian.
Yep.
Yeah, I check the box, but are you really getting into the Lordship of Christ? And
Yeah.
pointing your desires and your thoughts and your future and your relationship and all that towards the Lord, or are you trying to direct and control that?
Yeah, I believe it was Tozier that said, if Jesus isn't Lord, he can never be Savior.
Yeah.
Because those two things come hand in hand.
Right, and that's kind of the thing with salvation. Salvation is not simply a recognition that, oh yeah, I've sinned and there's a Savior. It's a heart change,
right,
to allowing the Lord to be Lord.
That's submission.
Right.
Yeah.
And submission to that Lordship of Christ.
That's right.
And maybe you've never done that. And I think you need to, I'm not saying because you have marriage problems you've never done that, but really look at, am I submitting my marriage to the Lord?
Right.
Am I really submitting my life to the Lord?
Right.
And pointing all that I have towards Him and allowing Him to lead and direct? Or am I trying to yank my spouse along to my will?
It's good. It's good.
So.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, the only thing I would add is so often what gets us into a place where we get away and realize we're not on the same page is because we've been negligent in attending to our marriage. Whether that's been attending to our spouse, in some cases attending to ourselves. We've allowed ourselves to slip into dependence on, substances, or we've allowed ourselves to make our wives one of the fellas instead of the wife and woman that she was made to be. We've just gotten lazy. I would suggest to you that now's the time to commit to a season of intentionality in your marriage, like that couple you shared from Disney, that they knew they weren't in a good place. I don't necessarily have any indication that they were Christian or not Christian, but they realized, hey, we better get intentional about our relationship.
Yep. And if you don't know how to get intentional, one just practical way is get the Love Dare book. And it gives you, I don't remember how many.
33, is that right?
30 maybe days of how you can really just put your spouse
practically.
Right.
It's very practical.
40 days. Yeah. How you can love, just ways that you can love your spouse. I think the first, it has some really short words in there, but it gives you sort of a little devotional and then a love dare.
Right.
And then ask your spouse to tell you 3 things that cause him or her to be uncomfortable or irritated with you. You must do so without attacking them or justifying your behavior. This is from their perspective only.
Wow.
So anyway, these are just practical things that really walk you along ways that you can hopefully flip the script a little bit.
That's good. That's great. One thing you can do if you listen to this and go, I don't even know how to get started on that, send us an email on marriagebydesignpodcast@gmail.com. We'd be happy to help any way that we can, even if that's just to pray for you and your spouse or someone in your life that you know is struggling. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, we do have our very own website now, marriagebydesign.podbean.com. You can access all of our episodes there. We'd love to have you follow us on that website as well. Mostly, guys, thank you so much for joining us for this Marriage Monday episode. So appreciate you being here. Would love any comments that you have on how you and your spouse fight the daily grind and how you pursue each other throughout having a marriage in a simple world. Until next time, guys, thanks so much for joining us. And remember, God is for your marriage. Have a great week.